We continue our 2025 draft coverage by looking at two Swedes, Victor Eklund and Anton Frondell, with our bald king, Tony Ferrari.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker at the Reef, also the co-host of Locked On NHL. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen, proudly part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. If you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. And today, Tony Ferrari from the Hockey News joins, where we break down two Swedes, Victor Eklund and Anton Frondell. We kind of talk about their games for each player, kind of compare the two, where Tony would go if you're a Sharks fan, had to choose between the two of them. So before we get to all that, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And now we bring in our bald king, Tony Ferrari, to talk about some Swedes. Tony, how's it going, buddy?
It's good. It's good. I'm glad you're having me talk about Swedes this year because the American crop isn't great. And as always, the QMJHL is the worst league in junior hockey. So let's talk about some Swedes.
There's one good guy this year, right? One.
Yeah,
no.
Bill Zonin. The guy no one's
Bill
talking about.
Yes, Bill Zonin. If the Sharks get him late first, early second, I would be very happy with him. He looks really fun. So, but we're going to talk about somebody who's actually really near and dear to our hearts. One Victor Eklund, noted younger brother of San Jose Sharks forward William Eklund, and we're going to try to do our best to not mix up the names. But we 1000% are. So if you don't know who what Victor Eklund is, so Eklund, Victor, forward playing with your Guardian, just like his brother, 5'11", 161-pound right-handed shot in 42 games in the regular season, had 19 goals, 12 assists, and 111 shots on goal. So, Tony, I ask, what makes Victor such an intriguing prospect?
The kid's a dog on a bone. Going back to his brother's draft year, everyone talked about how William Eklund was this methodical, tactical guy. He had the speed, he had the skill, and he had the maturity. The board play was such a big thing with William that we all kind of went, he's going to be a pro, no doubt about it. We just have to wait for the rest of his game to catch up to kind of the pro tendencies. And we saw some growing pains in San Jose, but we're seeing that he's hitting his stride this year. With Victor Eklund, I don't know if we're going to need those growing pains in the same way, because while he has a lot of the same raw skills, the skating is there, he's really good along the boards, he's tenacious, he's tactical, he understands the game the way William does. He also plays like a dog on the bone. This kid is relentless. He's constantly going in against bigger players, bigger defenders on the forecheck, and coming up with the puck. He's constantly going into the board battles and finding a way to just leverage the fact that, hey, he's only 5'11". He'll go in against a 6'3" defender and get under their body and take the puck out that way. He understands how to do these things at a smaller size. And yeah, he's only 161 pounds right now is what he's listed at, but this kid is strong for 161 pounds. So when he does fill out, there's a lot to really like about his game. And I don't know if he has necessarily the same high-end playmaking and tactical kind of play connection that William has, but I think he has as good or a better shot. So I think he could be kind of a foil to William Eklund in that way. But man, there's you watch him play, and there's a lot of similarities, but there is also that he's got that dog in him almost a little bit more with Victor. So he's a fun prospect. He's one of my favorite players to watch this year.
So yeah, it definitely sounds like little brother syndrome of you have to kind of survive from getting beat up by your older brother who's 4 years older than you, and you're seeing the fruits of that. So you talk about a shot, and that was always, especially the goal scoring, right? For William, there was always a big, he didn't score after he got drafted, right? And it took forever, and everyone was always, panicking, well, William Eklund can't score. William Eklund, definitely not known for scoring in the NHL, but he's a great assist guy. So do you think that's going to be kind of Victor's calling card? Is that like heavy forechecker? I'm going to score. That's going to be just go get pucks, shoot puck.
Yeah, and I don't even necessarily think it's just because he's a better shooter in general. I think he's constantly crashing the net. He's constantly creating havoc in the crease and stuff like that. So he has that element to his game too. So while he may score 10, 12 goals with a good shot, a one-time or a shot off the rush, he's got 7 from just crashing the net, banged in a rebound, or making something out of nothing. And I think this year specifically, his playmaking didn't really get a ton of credit because he did have significantly less assists than goals this year, but he's such a good play connector, especially off the walls. He's so good at kind of getting the puck and making a play to the middle of the ice for a teammate. And it was fun to watch him and Anton Frondell, who we'll talk about in a little bit, kind of get together late in the season and really start to hit their stride together, because they played off of each other really well. And I think the relentlessness, the kind of, like, I keep saying dog on a bone, but there's no other way to describe Victor Eklund's game, because he really is just such a tenacious, like, truculent, smaller player that brings the skill and offensive ability that you want to see from a guy that can reasonably play in the top 6.
So that was going to kind of my next 2 questions here is, where do you kind of see his ceiling, right? Because going back to William, who a lot of people thought he might have been the best player in that draft, and that's still to be decided of who's the best player in that 2021 draft. But like, do you see him as like a legitimate, top 6 guy, kind of maybe settles in more like a middle 6 role? And is that worth picking in the top 10 and what I know is a weaker draft class?
I think it is. I think he's a guy that's definitely worthy of picking in the top 5 even. Like, he's number 4 on my board. I think he's toyed with the number 1 conversation in this year, much like the way his brother did in his draft year, because there are so many things I just love about his game. So I think he tops out as a top 6 guy. Could he play in the first line? For sure. I think he'd be a really good forechecking kind of energy guy that plays alongside the play driving pivot in the middle, and he kind of plays on the wing. But I think ideally he's like a really high end second line winger who can really make a difference at both ends of the ice, because his defensive game is not terrible either.
All right. What type? I mean, you always worry though, especially kind of the Swedish guys as they kind of shift over, or European guys shifting over to play North American ice and playing just a different game. It sounds like it might be a pretty smooth transition for him when he does come over because of his game, and he's so well playing kind of inside and playing with all that chaos around him.
Yeah, I think Victor's not going to have a whole lot of trouble transitioning to the North American game. It wouldn't even shock me to see him really elevate his game a little bit more, even because he already does bring that crash and bang ability that you see from some of these North American kids, but with that high end skill that you see from so many of these Swedes coming out. It's really interesting because I talked to different people around both the public and private sector, and one of the guys I talked to is a frequent guest of the show, Will Scouch, and we've talked a number of times, like, what would Victor Eklund look like in the CHL this year? If he was playing in the OHL or the WHL, like
probably like Chernyshov, right? Just destroying kids.
Yeah,
right?
How ridiculous would this guy be? And if we saw him putting up those ridiculous numbers, that maybe he's in the OHL and he's rivaling Michael Misa's numbers, do we start to go, oh, like Victor Eklund's in the first overall pick conversation as well? Because right now, for me, it's Misa and Schaefer, and it seems to be Schaefer or Misa for most people. So if Victor Eklund's doing the same thing in the same league, what do you really say about that? So I think it'd be really interesting to see, because he does play that North American brash, just kind of go in there and forecheck, get the puck, and make a play off of that. And it's fun to watch.
All right, before we continue, we start talking about Anton Frondell, what makes him an intriguing prospect, and if he can get over the injury bug. We just need to take a quick break.
Did you know getting a good night's sleep is the #1 recipe for long-term success in life? I didn't. It took me way longer to realize than I'd like to admit. It was years of tossing and turning. I was always tired. I never felt like I could live up to my potential, but not anymore. Thanks to Bear Mattress. I used their sleep quiz and I matched with the Elite Hybrid. It's perfect for side sleepers like me. Now I wake up energized. I'm getting deeper sleeps and I'm ready to attack the day. No matter how you sleep, Bare Mattress has a match for you with a focus on recovery, cooling, and pressure relief to upgrade your sleep and improve your overall quality of life. Go to baremattress.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL at checkout for 40% off site-wide. This offer is not available anywhere else. You have to use my promo code on the very last page of checkout to get this discount. That's baremattress.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL for 40% off site-wide. Baremattress.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL.
All right, we're going to switch over now, and we're going to talk about, of course, his line mate, Anton Frondell. So if you don't know who Anton Frondell is, another forward playing with your Garden, 6 foot, 196 pound left-handed shot in 29 regular season games, had 11 goals, 14 assists with 78 shots on goal. So, Tony, I ask, what makes Anton Frondell such an intriguing prospect?
I think the thing that makes Anton Frondell an intriguing prospect is the thing that's held him down on draft boards all year. And that's the fact that he's missed so much time over the last 2 years because of injury. And he still manages to find a way to impress, especially this last stretch of the year for him. It's been so fun to watch because I'm a guy that has held true to having him in my top 6. He hasn't been lower than 6 on my board all year. I think he's been at 6 on my board pretty much all year. And I don't
written
see
in pen.
him.
We're not moving it, guy. That's
Yeah,
the reason you can't erase it.
If anything, he moves up because like I look at him and I look at a guy like, so for me, for reference, Victor Eklund's at 4, Porter Martone is at 5, and then we have Anton Frondell at 6. And really, I almost want to flip the Martone and Frondell one because, man, Frondell is so good and he does so many things so well. And the injuries have held him back so much over the last couple of years. And it's been like little things, a knee, a foot, like little things that won't last. Like they won't be recurring throughout his career, but just been bad luck at a bad time. And every time he's come back, it's taken him a few games to get going. But once he gets going, he's just like been fantastic. I think he's been, from a raw tools perspective, he's as good or better than Leo Carlsson. He brings a lot of the tools and skills that I think we see from some of the high-end elite Swedish players that we've seen from the last few years. He's a good sturdy kid. He's strong on the boards. He can make plays. He isn't the most flashy guy in the world. I think of him a lot like I think of Leo Carlsson last year, where he wasn't flashy until he needed to be, and then he was able to pull out the rabbit out of his hat. And when he went into the boards, you were like, oh yeah, he's getting manhandled, but somehow he came out with the puck against men. So Anton Frondell is a guy that I think has just absolutely been fantastic in the second half of the year, coming back from injury. And I mentioned it earlier, once him and Victor Eklund got on the same line together, it really was kind of a perfect mesh of two guys who are unselfish with the puck, but when they have their shot, they're going to finish.
So, I mean, you mentioned Leo Carlsson, who went second in a much better draft, and you're saying this guy has at least comparable tools. Like, is it just because of the injuries that we're not talking about him more?
I think it is, honestly. I wouldn't be shocked if he does go a little bit higher in the draft, because he does bring some of that power element that we've come to know from some of these bigger Swedish kids that come out. He's got an excellent shot. He creates under pressure. He does a lot along the walls. Those are the things you need to do at the NHL level. Those little things, like I've talked about wall play with both these guys so many times, and people are like, "Oh, it's so boring." Like watching three guys in a scrum is so boring. Yeah, until you're a fan of the Toronto Maple Leafs in the first round, and no one can win a battle along the wall. Like that's why that's so.
Just get yourself a Macklin Celebrini who wins every board battle.
Yeah, I know, right? Like that's just it, right? You have Macklin Celebrini already being among the NHL's best at winning board battles. Bringing in a guy like Anton Frondell or Victor Eklund, even, who are tenacious enough and to win those board battles. And I think they do it in different ways. I think with Eklund, it is that constant just energy and motor. And Frondell, it's more of that tactical kind of planning things out, understanding that if he gets his weight down on his stick, he's able to rotate his hips into a guy and kind of pin them up against the boards and then escape the other way. It's these little things that he does along the boards that are so pro ready and so pro. Like you watch him and you go, oh, that guy's been playing pro for a while. And when he's not hurt, he has been.
Yep. Frondell also a center, do you think he's going to continue to be a center going forward, or do you think he's going to be one of those guys you're going to have to kind of wait and see?
That one's going to be interesting. I think he does have potential to be a center down the board, down the way. But I know a lot of people have said maybe he ends up being a winger at the next level, because he does have so many of those skills that you need from a winger in terms of the forechecking in the board play. So honestly, I think he's going to be one of those guys that ends up being pretty versatile. I think he's a guy that maybe he's on your wing to start the season, but you have an injury and he's the first guy to get moved to center. I think that's kind of the role he ends up playing. And if he ends up playing a year or two at center in the middle of his career, it won't shock anyone.
Where do you think he kind of tops out? Do you think he's also middle six type of player? Or do you think he has more upside?
It's interesting. If he's a winger, I think he can play on the top line if he's put in the right situation, and if he can avoid the injuries. That's the biggest thing with him. He needs to stay healthy and just kind of get this development track going back again. Because like I said, in the last 2 years, maybe a year of it's been completely taken away from him. So it's going to be tough, but I think he at least fits in on a second or third line. If he's a center, for sure, he's a top 9 center, no doubt about it, I don't think. But as a winger, like I said, I could see him on any of the top 3 lines, really.
The injuries do work. And again, I know you said they were like massive things, but again, like there is something to it, just being available to play, right? And, your best ability is your availability. And if this guy's dealing with this stuff now, you just hate where it's just as unlucky as it is. Like, it just might be one of those things just follows him throughout his entire career. But like you said, right, maybe it also gives him a bigger path of development because he's just still scratching the surface of what this guy can do. So, I mean, if you're the Sharks, right, and say you don't get the top, 3 picks, and like you're going to have to think really hard about a guy like Frondell, who is bigger than Eklund, and we know Mike Grier likes his beefy boys, especially in the back 9 or the back 6 there. Like, does it make sense for the Sharks to think long and hard about him?
I think it does, especially if they end up somehow. We were talking before this, where they're 13 points back of third place right now. I don't think they're falling too far out of the top couple spots, but if they were to, for some way,
Luca Cagnoni, baby,
Luca Cagnoni season. Let's go, baby. Yes. He's gonna will them into like third from last.
We can still make the playoffs, even though mathematically we can't. We're still doing it with Cagnoni, baby.
So you're saying there's a chance. Yes. But no, like I think he's definitely a guy that would fit the Sharks mold and in Mike Grier's mold specifically. But the one thing with the injuries is we talk about a lot of players in this draft. And one guy that's also been plagued by injuries that I think kind of should be brought up in the same conversation is Roger McQueen. And that's a guy that's dealt with back injuries all year long. When the diagnosis was announced, I don't remember exactly what it was, but I looked up, and basically it's a fracture in his vertebrae.
That sounds terrible.
And exactly, it's in his lower back, and it basically helps stabilize everything. And you go, okay, we're gonna draft that guy in the top 5. And listen, Roger McQueen's highly skilled. He's got his qualities that make him a really interesting player and prospect. But if I'm choosing between the 2 injury-plagued guys that can play center at a high level that have at least a little bit of size, I know Roger McQueen's quite a bit bigger, even though Frondell's not small by any means. I'm going with Frondell 9 days out of 9.
Man, what a week they have in Canada.
Yeah, I know. I said 9 days out of 9, and I was like, I don't know why. The tariffs are killing us, man. We're just adding days a week to make sure we can pay our bills.
We got to work 7 out of 9 days a week now for Canada. That's brutal, man. All right, before we finish up with Tony, we talk about where he thinks both these players go in the draft. Just need to take a quick break. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get on the action like never before. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get on the college hoops action all tournament long.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Okay. The big question, right, is because both these guys are in the same range here, right? And we kind of touched on it a little bit, but like, where does, if Mike Greer calls you up draft day, Tony, I'm thinking between Victor, I'm thinking between Anton Frondell. Who are you picking?
I'm going to go with Victor Eklund. I absolutely
Mama Eklund is very happy to hear that, because that's less
Yes.
trips to places in North America she has to go.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Mama Eklund would be very happy about that. But no, it's as much as I've loved Anton Frondell, and he's been as high on my board as anyone's had him all year. I think Victor's been higher all year, and it's consistently been higher all year. And I think it's just the combination of there's still so much room for growth physically, the physical maturity that Victor Eklund can still bring just over the next couple of years, just developing, getting bigger, getting stronger. Combine that with the fact that he already plays such a tenacious, such a dogged brand of hockey. He's going to be an instant fan favorite, and it wouldn't shock me down the line seeing him and his brother on the same line, because they would complement each other so well. Looking at the standings, I don't think San Jose is going to be considering Victor too much. But
the draft lottery is a crazy thing, man. You never know.
If they do get in that position, I would consider Victor as high as third probably, and be pretty stoked about it if we got him there.
So Victor, I do worry, especially like the way he plays, right? Do you worry that he might start to kind of break down, especially being a smaller player, right? Do you worry if his style lends him to maybe having a shorter career? Not that, again, like we know he's going to get bigger, stronger, and his brother, for the most part, has been pretty healthy, except for, a shoulder surgery, which he 100% returned from. But like, do you worry about that?
Not really, because it's not like he's out there being reckless. And those are the guys I worry about. And I love Carter Bear. I think I've even talked about him on the show once or twice.
Oh, our poor guy. I know, the Achilles, man.
Yeah, the Achilles injury. And that's not an injury of his own doing, but he's a guy that sometimes is a bit reckless. Like, you see him go out there and he throws a big hit, and it's in open ice or it's along the boards, and you see both guys go down and you go, I know Carter Bear threw that hit, but I don't know who took the worst of it.
Who took the worst, yeah.
But with Victor Eklund, you don't really see that. Like, he goes in there and he'll throw a hit on a bigger guy. And it's not that he's blowing the guy up or anything, but he dislodges the puck. And I talk about functional physicality so much when I do my draft rankings. It's one of the very few things in my little like lead up to the actual rankings that I talk about, because everyone always gets on me. Tony, you like the small guys. Tony, you like guys that don't hit. Like, why don't you have Keishon Aitchison in the top 10? It's because I want functional physicality. I want guys that are going out there and hitting with a purpose. I want guys who are using their body as a tool, not just as a weapon. And I think that's the kind
Jacob Trouba knocked down.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Jacob Trouba, you are not the player I like.
Yes.
But it's that element of just being able to use your body properly without throwing it around to the point where you're hurting yourself, right? Like, we talk about reckless, that Jacob Trouba hit in the playoffs where he like goes head first in the boards. It will always be in my mind.
Through the window. Yeah.
Like he's just crushing his own spinal cord, and it's okay. Right. Like, so with Victor, I don't see that lack of physicality in terms of the recklessness that you sometimes see with some of these smaller guys that do throw hits.
So both these guys right now are in Hockey Allsvenskan playoffs, right? That are trying to get back into the SHL. How big is it, do you think, for these guys who are major parts of their team, like playing on the third line? And we know in the S, or like, in hockey, in SHL and Hockey Allsvenskan, that third line usually is a lot of like the younger guys there. How big is it to play these meaningful games to try to get back into the SHL? Which would be really weird because William Eklund was on the team that lost and got them relegated into the Hockey Allsvenskan. Victor Eklund, righting wrongs of the Eklund family.
Yeah, it would be a fun story. Like, it would be something that
I'm sure Victor would not let him know.
Exactly.
Like,
it would be something that William will never be able to atone for, essentially, right? Like, it will always be something that Victor has on him, because it's not like William's going to go back and play for Djurgården anytime soon. Yeah. And when he does, it'll probably be towards the end of his career, if he even decides to, when he's like 39 and on his Jaromir Jagr tour of playing in his hometown. He's got
7 Stanley Cups.
He's already led the Sharks to a few cups. Him and Celebrini have won a couple back-to-back scoring titles and whatnot.
It's great.
Be great times for San Jose.
He actually won the North somehow. Don't ask.
It was crazy because he led he led the league in save percentage. It was wild.
Did too. Yeah, it was crazy.
He stole the net from Askarov. It was crazy. But no, it would be fun to see. It's important for them to play big games. Like you said, I think Eklund's got an assist. Frondell's got a goal and an assist. It's a big time of year for them.
They assisted on Eklund assisted on the Frondell overtime winner a couple days ago.
You have them both playing in big moments at big times. Like, young guys getting chances in overtime is a big deal. So it's going to be fun to see if they can push this team a little further, push this team to get back up to the SHL, even if they're not necessarily the favorites to do so, according to some of the Swedes that I've talked to.
Well, we all know it's Matthias Havled. He's the one running the show over there right now. He's making the engine that works over there. So, all right. I will ask a couple questions here before we get out. So, Victor Eklund, does he go higher, lower, or the same spot as his brother William at number 7?
Looking at the Tankathon standings, it's tough.
We're recording March 18th, so if someone is watching this in the future and things are much different, but as we record right now, we will. So the standings are: 4 is Buffalo, 5 is Seattle, 6 is Philly, 7 is Pittsburgh, which is where William went, 8 is Anaheim, 9 is Boston, and then 10 is the Islanders right now.
So I look at that and I go, Buffalo probably doesn't take them. Seattle might.
They have 1,000 small players,
but they do have 1,000 small players. Yes. Pittsburgh makes a lot of sense because he's very much a Dubas guy, a Dubas type.
Instantly their best prospect,
and instantly their best prospect by a country mile. So that would make a lot of sense, and that would also make him the same pick as his brother. So I'm going to say he goes the same. I think he goes 7th. I think it's a good spot. I have him ranked higher, so I think whoever gets him there is getting good value.
All right, same question. Frondell, where does Frondell go, right? And again, I can see GMs, they love them big boys. He's a little bit bigger, potentially center, so that's always thought of more. Where do you have Frondell going?
I wouldn't be shocked to see him go a little higher. Like, I wouldn't be shocked to see him go 4 to Buffalo, 6 to Philly, but I also wouldn't be shocked entirely to see him go at like 9 to Boston or at 10 to the Islanders. If he's there at 12, Detroit is sprinting to the stage and yelling in Swedish because they love their Swedes.
No stage. They're sending the email. No stage this year to sprint.
Oh, I know. It's so sad.
It's so dumb. It's so dumb.
So dumb. But you know what I'm saying. Like, Detroit would be so jacked to draft this guy. But with that said, I just named 6 teams that are all in various spots between 4 and 12. So I think Anton Frondell, because of the injuries, because we've only got to see him play 29 games this year, plus a bunch of, like, I know everyone keeps going on, oh, it's only 29 games, but he also played 10 junior games, 14 games for the U18 team, two games for the U20 team. So we've seen this guy play 50 games, and that means a lot for a guy. So I think there's been chances to see him. So I'm going to say he goes higher than Eklund, but not considerably.
Okay, 6 and 7 sounds. I could see it. I could definitely see it. So, yeah, if you think the top 4, and I know you don't have Martone, but you kind of figure most people have that top 4 of the OHL kids and Higgins, and then give me a wild card spot at number 5 of somebody doing something crazy,
Roger McQueen
or somebody will. That's a big boy who can skate. Yeah, give me him at number 5. And yeah, I can see the Swedes going 6 and 7. It makes a ton of sense. So, believe me, it's March 18th. We're gonna be 1000% wrong on this. So by the time the actual draft gets on, but we have plenty of time to debate this out. So, Tony, thank you so much. Where can the people find you, buddy? What do you got coming up next?
Find me on Twitter, X, whatever you were calling it still, at the Tony Ferrari. All my stuff's at thehockeynews.com, except for my game tape videos. They're all on the Scouting YouTube now. It's been a ton of fun to do those this year because the production quality shot through the roof. Shout out to the producer, AJ. And it's been really fun because we've gotten a lot of the top guys. Speaking of Eklund, if Mama Eklund, if you're listening, tell your son to respond to my email, please. It's been a fun year with those. So the game tape videos, definitely check out on Scouting YouTube. I've got them posted all over my Twitter as well. And then the all my rankings and all that stuff is at thehockeynews.com.
All right, Tony. I'm sure you will have you back on at some point here, if you're not too busy being late for doing other talented things that you do. So we'll talk again soon, buddy.
Anytime, buddy. See you soon.
Thanks to our good friend Tony Ferrari spending some time with us, talking about the 2 Swedes. I don't know, it's hard for. I think the Sharks have to get really unlucky to get in position to draft one of these guys. I still think they're going to be as of March 18th picking in the top 2 most likely. But again, we still want to kind of cover all of our bases. Victor Eklund, though, between the 2, I think is the guy I definitely would want. Pairing him with his brother on a line with either Smith or Celebrini, sign me up for that. Like, that sounds super fun. The Eklund jerseys would be flying off the shelves. But I don't know if the Sharks are going to be in position and the draft capital to move up from that Stars pick up to a top 10 pick. If Victor Eklund is there, as a lot of draft capital. I don't know if the Sharks have or would want to spend that way. So, but 2 very intriguing prospects in Eklund and Frondell. As we'll continue our draft coverage, especially after the season ends. We'll continue to kind of do these drafts and look at some of these prospects. So make sure you are following along wherever you get podcasts, and of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at My Fry Hole. Until tomorrow. Bye, friends.